Oh my gosh. After they got the $7.5 million, Morens emailed co-conspirator 1 from his NIH email account. What an idiot. Do I get a kickback? Question. Too much effing money. Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss. Wow. These people are totally corrupt, and they covered up their tracks, and they were organizing and nudging the narrative to support them and their money. And he says, that's a lot of effing money. Where are my kickbacks? Top Fauci advisor now indicted. You may remember the name David Morens, now under charge by the DOJ. We see they posted this today, and we have the full indictment queued up here. 29 pages with multiple charges, including conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. And it's not just him that is under the scope of this investigation. There are also co-conspirators, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator number 2, which may mean that we have more indictments related to this coming down soon. We got the new DOJ saying he is now indicted. He's a former senior NIAID official indicted for concealing federal records back during the pandemic. And we've been waiting for some COVID justice for a long time here, saying these allegations represent a profound abuse of trust at a time when the American people needed it most. We were relying on these people who told us every day. During the height of the pandemic, said Todd Blanche, as alleged in the indictment, Dr. Morens, and his co-conspirators deliberately concealed and falsified records in an effort to suppress alternative theories about the origins of the vid. Government officials have a solemn duty to provide honest, well-grounded facts and advice in the service of public interest, not to advance their own personal or ideological agendas or their own pocketbooks. Many of these people got fat and rich off of this. And so the indictment now announced Tuesday, April 28, 2026, saying this guy, David Morens, he's 78. He lives in Chester, Maryland, is charged with multiple charges that we looked at. He was a senior advisor to the NIAID Office of the Director from 2006 to 2022. Todd Blanche said he was circumventing record protocols. This is from Cash, with the intention of avoiding transparency. We're not going to tolerate this. Not only did he do that, he also engaged in illegal obfuscation of his communications, but he got kickbacks from doing so. So he lied to us and he got rich in the aftermath. If you engage in this activity conspiring against us, we will not stop until you face justice. Man, this new Cash is pretty good too. U.S. Attorney Kelly O'Hayes, she said, when public officials deliberately circumvent the law and hide their communications, they undermine our trust. And if they disregard their legal obligations, they're in big trouble. As a senior advisor working with Fauci and others, Morens counseled senior NIAID official 1 and other senior level staff on senior level policies. He developed recommendations and solutions for issues that impacted the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and wrote and edited manuscripts. He provided guidance, expertise to senior staff members about epidemiological studies. He gathered information from grantees and others in the community about the nature of the vid. This enabled him to understand their historical activities, and he assisted. He formulated policies and procedures, and then he briefed senior NIAID official 1, which may or may not be Fauci, so that guy, official 1, could then relay that information to the President of the United States and then to the public, probably Fauci. According to the indictment, Morens, co-conspirator 1, co-conspirator 2, and others conspired during the pandemic to defraud and to commit several offenses against the United States after they terminated his grant. NIH terminated the grant, understanding the risk of a bat coronavirus emergence based on allegations that it emerged from Wuhan, the China virus. NIAID awarded the grant to Company 1 and co-conspirator 1, who then made a sub-award to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. If convicted, he faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison for conspiracy against the United States, a maximum of 20 years for each count of destruction, altering, and falsifying the records, concealing, removing, mutilating the records, and hopefully he gets the max for betraying the trust of the people whom he served. This is what James Comer had to say about this. He said, this is Dr. Anthony Fauci's top advisor, David Morens, just been indicted. James Comer saying, this is good news, capital. Dr. David Morens, so-called doctor, deliberately obstructed Congress's investigations into the origins of the vid. He even admitted to me under oath that he deleted a lot of emails. Here's a clip from 2024 where Fauci's senior advisor, David Morens, who was caught deliberately obstructing their investigation, allegations where he testified to Congress. We'll listen to a little bit of this.
I'm sure as you've already testified, you're aware that deleting federal records is a crime. And as you've said, you previously testified that you did not delete any federal records. But on February 24th, 2021, you wrote, quote, I learned from our FOIA lady here how to make emails disappear after I'm FOIA'd, but before the search starts. So I think we are all safe. Plus, I deleted most of those earlier emails after sending them to Gmail, end quote. And the next day on February 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, but I learned the tricks last year from an old friend, Marge Moore, who heads our FOIA office and also hates FOIAs, end quote. Yes or no, is Marge Moore the FOIA lady you were referring to?
She was at the time. I believe she's retired since then.
Did the NIH FOIA office instruct you on how to delete emails or avoid FOIA?
No.
On October 25th, 2021, another scientist wrote, quote, David is concerned about the privacy of text and other messages from his cell phone to you and me because he has been using a government phone. This came from Tony, end quote. Sir, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding using personal phone or email to communicate with Dr. Daszak?
I don't remember it. It's possible. I probably wouldn't have remembered it, and I don't remember it. He and I usually never talked about that kind of stuff. It would be very unusual if it happened.
On January 18th, you testified that you did not have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth. On October 25th, 2021, you wrote, quote, Peter, from Tony's numerous recent comments to me, they're trying to protect you, end quote. You meaning EcoHealth and Dr. Daszak.
Wild.
Dr. Burns, did you ever have any conversations with Dr. Fauci regarding EcoHealth?
Well, the ones you just mentioned, I don't have any recollection of that.
Of course you don't.
No recollection.
No recollection, no. But let me just say what I do remember is one time in a face-to-face meeting, he referred or alluded to some stuff that was in the press. I don't even think he said what it was, but it was about, I assumed it was about Peter's grants and press reports about it and the ending of the grant. And I said to him, sort of out of the blue, guessing what he was really thinking, I said to him, Tony, I know you would have never been involved in getting rid of that grant. And he didn't respond. He just sort of looked at me. And
so Dr. Fauci was always a big defender of EcoHealth and their right to receive federal funding?
I can't speak for him. I think he had great respect for them. And when the grant problems came about, I think he was troubled by it. I just thought of something that I'd forgotten to say. At some point, somebody, it may not have been Tony, but it might have been Hugh Uppencloss, somebody said to me, Peter's his own worst enemy because he made some mistakes on that grant.
I would say that's a factual statement.
Yeah, so Peter, of course, Peter Daszak and EcoHealth Alliance, they were the ones getting federal money to apparently contract with the Wuhan Institute of Virology to do the gain of function research that Fauci said they were not doing, and got into this with Rand Paul over and over. He says, I'm pretty sure what you're describing is gain of function. And Fauci says, you, Senator, don't know what you're talking about. And pretty sure we all know what we're talking about that may have resulted in the virus permeating throughout the planet, killing millions of people. So these people are monsters, and now this guy is being indicted. Here's what it looks like. On or about March 13th, 2020, Trump declared a nationwide emergency because of the pandemic. We remember, on or about March 15th, states began to implement restrictive measures. Businesses were shuttered. Schools were closed. Children had years of their life. Millions became sick. Over 1 million Americans died. The nation braced itself for the impact. We wanted answers. How could this be treated? Where did it come from? The pandemic had a profound impact on the United States. It changed everything. The records generated by its agencies had a significant historical, institutional, medical, and public value. Now, as explained herein, David Morins and other co-conspirators defrauded and committed offenses against the United States. We know who these agencies are. We know it's the NIAID sub-agency of the NIH, the National Institutes of Health. They all played a major role in the COVID response. Now, Morins resided in Maryland. He was a medical doctor for much of his career. He was a federal employee and a public official, ultimately reaching the rank of captain in the U.S. Public Health Service. From 1983 to 98, also in the Army Reserves, lieutenant colonel, and others. Then became a senior advisor, to NIAID official number 1. We're presuming that is Fauci, the guy who was, of course, briefing the president and briefing the public. Now, his senior advisor duties were broad, and he hosted a bunch of matters about infectious diseases. He would take on senior level policies, provide guidance. He had a bunch of updates for Congress and things of significant importance to the public. As senior advisors, he also gathered information from grantees and others. All of this related to the vid, to assist in formulating policies, to brief Fauci, and then Fauci would brief the president, Congress, and the public, right? That's basically the only person that we saw. Could be like, Deborah Birx or somebody else, but it's probably Fauci. Says co-conspirator 1 was the president and CEO of a company. Co-conspirator 1 was a resident of New York. Company 1 was a nonprofit, and they had a mission of protecting people from emergent infectious diseases, about the origins of these new viruses. In a notice of award, they granted money to co-conspirator 1, and then the Wuhan was a sub-award from the company. So it goes from the federal government to EcoHealth to Wuhan, China, where they're concocting these horrific things. Co-conspirator 2, another individual, physician, scientist, professor who worked for the academic institution and also got grants. So we know that there's a Federal Records Act, right? It says preserve your records. They're important. Do not delete them. We have safeguards to make sure that these are part of the record. Federal law prohibits you from deleting these things. NIH provides yearly training to these people. According to training that we know David Morins, the guy we just heard from, receives, you can't delete these things. These are federal records. He was instructed that if you're not sure if a document is a federal record, if you think this is like a personal record, you should consult a record liaison. He was informed they come in all different mediums, electronic formats and others. Email records were required to be sent using an NIH email. You are not to use a personal email to conduct NIH business, period. He was also further informed that records were only considered personal if they had no relation to any of your official business. And you were required by law to suspend the destruction of records from the FOIA request until the records were satisfied. We also know what FOIA is here, having read a lot of FOIA documents. HHS implemented the Freedom of Information Act request. There's a presumption of openness, and you have to comply with those, but they didn't. Beginning in or about 2020 April and continuing through at least through June 2023, David Morins knowingly and willfully conspired with the other two to commit offenses, violations of the law, where they destroyed records, impeded the records, and more. They also committed other offenses, undertaking to destroy the records. All of these essentially are destruction of records charges, to commit violations where the grantees got money in exchange for the discharge of their official duties, and to defraud the United States in a bunch of different ways. Those are the charges. Here is how the conspiracy went down. Morins, co-conspirator 1 and co-conspirator 2, and others known and unknown to the grand jury, saying that they used his personal non-governmental email to exchange federal records from his knowledge as being a government official. The federal records created and transferred all included a bunch of types of internal information. Some things were controlled NIH work product. So government details he's shipping out to his personal Gmail and then sending it out to these co-conspirators. Records about efforts to influence the NIH to actually fund the company again, to keep that money flowing. Records about Company One's grant termination, reinstatement, suspension, including the drafting and editing of statements on behalf of Company One. So he helps the company who just got canceled do damage control and try to get their money back. Records about public writings on the origins of the virus. No, don't say that. Say this. Records concerning congressional oversight over NIH. Records about his access to Fauci and his use of that to convey other information about the company back over to Fauci. Now, what happens is, of course, they destroyed those records. Concealed, removed, or destroyed, or caused the concealment or removal of those records in order to evade FOIA and the Federal Records Act. How did they do it? They say they would work and communicate with others also so that they could publish papers, other writings to support the company, but without directly including them in the emails. Here are some of the communications that were specifically offloaded to Gmail. On April 25, after learning about the cancellation of the grant, Morins forwarded his communications from his NIH account to his Gmail. Then he emailed stating, "This is sent from my Gmail. Please send all replies back to my Gmail." He said, "There are things I can't say except that Fauci is aware, and I have learned that there are ongoing efforts within the NIH to steer through this with minimal damage to you and to your colleagues and to NIH and NIAID." And they were all in it together, right? Because they gave them the grants originally that then were funding this gain of function research over in Wuhan. They offloaded it to a foreign country because they didn't want to do it here. So then on April 26, co-conspirator 1 wrote back and copied others. He said, "David, great. We'll communicate with you via Gmail from now on." Another email went out. He said, "More FOIAs are on their way. This time to NIAID. It includes emails to us." He alerted the group, targeting Fauci and looking for emails to us and others re-Wuhan. Morins responded by thanking co-conspirator 1. He said, "Hey, thanks for the heads up. We all dread these FOIAs. They take up so much time, I know." On or about May 3rd, Morins then emailed members of a prominent professional medical organization to enlist them in speaking out on behalf of co-conspirator 1 and his company because the termination of the back coronavirus grant was damaging them. The email stated in part, "Colleagues, I need to keep this correspondence off of U.S. government emails for obvious reasons, so I'm sending this from Gmail. I am under multiple FOIAs already, and co-conspirator 1 is facing facing orchestrated death threats. We and co-conspirator 2 and I have advised 1 to lay low, not go to the press, go through NIH to get a face-to-face meeting, and let others come to his defense. On or about May 15th, Morin's emailed co-conspirator 1, falsely stating that the NIAID FOIA officer had told Morin's that he would cover his rear by deleting emails and making use of FOIA delays, and that he would soon need to train himself to use only Gmail, and that he appreciated that co-conspirator 1 was sensitive to that. Then on May 16th, Morin's emailed them about an article that he was drafting to their benefit. He said, "We'll agree that we want to keep off of it any fingerprints of you," which is North Carolina scientist number 1. He concluded by saying, "I need to keep this off government email and government phone texts." July 2nd, 2020, we're in the thick of it now. Morin sent an email from his NIH account to his Gmail account. He said, "Hey, co-conspirator in Outlook, delete or send to Gmail." July 3rd, he submitted and caused his submission to a commentary in medical journal saying it came from Nature, okay? The piece was authored by Morin's and intended to benefit their company. Then, after learning that NIH had awarded $7.5 million back to the same company, the same grant the conspirators had been concerned about, Morin's emailed, oh my gosh! After they got the $7.5 million, Morin's emailed co-conspirator 1 from his NIH email account. What an idiot. He said, do I get a kickback? Question, 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 question. Too much effing money. Do you deserve it all? Let's discuss. Wow. In response, on or about August 28th, co-conspirator 1 emailed Morin's at his Gmail account. At his Gmail account, he said, "Of course there's a kickback. It starts with 5 more years of FOIA requests. I just hope it doesn't culminate in 5 years of federal jail." Well, hopefully that is coming soon. These people are totally corrupt, and they covered up their tracks, and they were organizing and nudging the narrative to support them and their money. And he says, "That's a lot of effing money. Where are my kickbacks?"